Today, we're going to dive into one of the most incredible stories from the ancient world, the Great Greek Expansion. Have you ever seen pictures of ancient Greek temples or theaters and been surprised to find out they're in places like Italy or France or even Africa? It's a huge mystery, right? How did all this Greek stuff get so far from Greece? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, like a lot of epic journeys, this one starts with a problem back home. A really, really big problem. To understand it, we've got to jump in our time machine and go way, way back, all the way to the 8th century BC. This is the moment when the Greek world started to feel, well, a little too cramped. So what was going on? First off, the population was booming, and more people means you need more food. The problem? There just wasn't enough good farmland to go around. To make things even worse, the best land was being snapped up by the wealthy, leaving smaller family farms with tiny plots that just couldn't support them. It was a real crisis. The bottom line is this. Greece was bursting at the seams. They were running out of space, and if they didn't find a solution soon, things were going to get ugly. But you don't just send thousands of people sailing into the unknown without a solid plan. And let me tell you, the Greeks were master planners. This was like the ultimate ancient moving day. And this wasn't some chaotic rush for the boats. Oh no, they had a system, a clear step-by-step process. First, a city would pick a dedicated leader for the expedition. Then, the city itself would foot the bill for everything, the ships, the food, the tools, and finally, the most crucial step of all, they had to get permission from the gods. The home city that sent the colonists out was called the metropolis. And that name was perfect because in Greek, it literally means mother city. It acted just like a parent, supporting its new colony for generations, creating this tight-knit family bond. They would even carry a flame from the sacred fire of the metropolis to light the very first fire in their new home. And the person in charge of this whole massive operation, that was the oikist. You can think of this person as the founder, the ship's captain, and the head city planner all rolled into one. It was their job to get everyone there safely, find the perfect spot, and then build a brand new city from absolutely nothing. Talk about pressure. Now, that last step was absolutely non-negotiable. The oikist had to travel to the famous oracle at Delphi to ask the god Apollo for his blessing. Getting a good prophecy from the oracle gave everyone the courage they needed to face the terrifying journey ahead. I mean, trying to sail off into the unknown without the gods on your side, that was just unthinkable. So, you've got your plan, you've got your divine blessing. Now for the really hard part. The journey. They were literally sailing off the edge of the map. Just try to imagine how incredibly difficult this was. We've got GPS, satellites, digital maps. What did they have? Well, they used the sun to guide them by day and the stars by night. They'd watch where birds were flying, or even look for subtle changes in the color of the water to guess if land was nearby. It took unbelievable skill and probably a whole lot of luck. And being on one of those ships, it was not a luxury cruise. We're talking small, super crowded boats packed with people, animals, and all their supplies. They were powered by rows of oarsmen and just one big square sail, and they had to stick super close to the coast, basically hopping from one landmark to the next. It was a slow, exhausting, and really dangerous way to travel. But for those who were lucky enough to survive the journey, the real work was just getting started. Now they had to turn a patch of wilderness into a thriving new Greek city. The oikist didn't just point to a random spot on the beach. They had a very specific checklist. Number 1, you need a safe harbor for your ships. 2, you need a high hill for defense, what they called an acropolis. 3, you absolutely need a reliable source of fresh water. And 4, good soil for farming. Finding a place that ticked all 4 boxes was the secret to survival. And right in the middle of every one of these new cities, they built an agora. Now, this was way more than just a market. This was the beating heart of the community. It's where you'd go to trade, to talk politics, to catch up on gossip. It was the social glue that held everyone together. And here's a really crucial part. Once they chose the site, the oikist divided up the farmland equally among all the original settlers. This was a huge deal. It gave everyone a fair shot and a personal stake in the colony's success, motivating them to work together to build their new home from the ground up. Okay, now imagine this whole process happening over and over again, hundreds of times, for hundreds of years. The result? It didn't just solve Greece's crowding problem. It completely reshaped the entire ancient world. In fact, the colonization was so successful, especially in southern Italy, that the Romans eventually gave it a nickname, Magna Graecia, which means Great Greece. Some of the new cities there, like Syracuse, actually grew to be even bigger and more powerful than famous cities back home like Athens. It was a massive success. And the ripple effect was enormous. We're talking about Greek culture spreading across 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Their language and their alphabet traveled with them. Big ideas about things like democracy and philosophy took root in all these new places. And it created this huge network of trade that connected the whole Mediterranean world like never before. So, this brings us all the way back to our original question. Looking at how far these ancient Greeks traveled, does it make you wonder, could any of the big cities we know today have actually started out this way? Well, the answer is a huge yes. Major modern cities like Marseille in France, Naples in Italy, and even Istanbul in Turkey all began as Greek colonies over 2,500 years ago. So the next time you look at a map, remember that these ancient journeys didn't just build a few new towns, they laid the foundations of the world we still live in today.